All right, here we go on this Monday. Yes, we're going to be starting. It is Monday, August 18th. Yup. Hit a major milestone, by the way. 100. Gian says audio is good. 100,000 followers on our Facebook page. So very happy. Thank you, everybody, for the support. We're going to be starting in just a couple moments. Again, people, what's the latest? What's the latest? We'll give you the latest. We will give you the latest. What's the update? We'll give you the update. We're going to start off with Justin Katz, managing editor, anchorrising.com, politics this week. We're going to start with that. Kylie update is going to come closer to 1:30. I know patience is not a strong suit for some people, but we'll get there. Remember, you adapt to the program. I don't know how some people were raised. Debbie's back from vacation. Yes. Hi there, Denise Oliver. I know everybody wants answers. I recognize that. But these things don't happen that way. So we're going to try to sum it up for you a little bit. All right. But we're going to be starting in just 4 minutes. 4 minutes. We shall begin. Let's see. Two. Till Thursday. Okay. Yes. We are going to begin. There's Renee. Hi there, Shelley. Yes, I know. Everybody wants an update. Thank you, Snoop. No, we're going to stay patient. Now, tonight, we're going to do more in depth on our coverage. Where is Kylie tonight? For this hour, we're going to talk about other news. And plus, we're going to be live on the radio. Plus, we do have commercials. Tonight, 7 o'clock, where is Kylie? Unless something happens before then. But that is our plan for now. That is our working plan. 7 o'clock. Thank you, Stu. I do as well. Thank you, nurse. I appreciate that. God is good. Boy, it's really cooled off. This is nice weather. I mean, I do like summertime, but this is nice. Thank you, Snoop. I appreciate that. No, we're going to remain calm. Sometimes I have to condition myself when you're going to engage with that. But, you know, I think a lot of this is, may seem odd to some people, but it doesn't seem odd to me. But I think a lot of this is just manners. There are some people, you know, I was raised that we would sit around the dinner table, 9 people, and no TV, no radio, and converse. Eat and converse about what is happening. I also have raised my children that way. But there are some people, you know, we don't allow, if we're having a conversation, we don't allow someone to just burst in. What's going on? What? Like you, and especially since I was the youngest, I talked the least. Some people need to learn that. You don't just burst in and start asking questions. That's rude. More people need to be told it's manners. There's manners that go along with it. And some of the people that want to be part and watch, they need to listen, not do all the talking. They think their questions are the most important. Spoiler alert, they're not. Listen. Okay. Thank you, Jane Rice. Yes. Well, they do not know how to have a conversation. They weren't taught how to have a conversation. So, you know, and I recently, actually in January, I had lunch with someone that once a year I try to get together with these people. And this one person I don't see that often that I used to work with, as one person where in a group is telling a story, she just is bursting in with questions. You have to say, now we're quiet. Now we're quiet. We're going to listen. This person is speaking. Thank you, Janet Dwyer. Yes, I don't care. We're going to bring it back. You have to have manners. We're going to begin. Folks, at 106, yes, it is the chosen one behind the microphone. Here I am, Lord. Yes, on this beautiful, glorious Monday. Boy, it's really cooled down. This portion of our program, where is it? There it is. We're going to add, there we go, is brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Stop in and see them. Family-run business. They do a fantastic job. They're open 7 days a week. Full-scale nursery. Everything you need to make your home a showstopper. And right now, at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, look for them on Facebook. Debbie, Steve, Junior, Byron, and Lauren. They have fresh vegetables, delicious local corn. It adds so much to a summer feast when you have delicious fresh corn. They also have delicious peaches. And vegetables. Stop it on your way back from the beaches. 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. Jane Rice, you would love it. They are still looking for Nancy McCormick. PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They're a full-scale nursery. Now, also, check out DePietro.com. We do have, look at that. We do have a lot of updates regarding, yes, it is, Cable, a beautiful day. There's Donna. The Coesit Inn, folks. I love it there. You walk in. They're open 7 days a week. Something on the menu for everyone. I highly recommend. And what I mean by that is it's also a good-sized restaurant that I like, that people are not just on top of me, because I don't like to have people on top of me when I'm eating. I don't need to hear someone chewing their food. So, but they have delicious on the chef special at the Coesit Inn, pork chop, delicious pierogi. If you like Polish food, which I learned to appreciate. I spent a month in Poland. Also, surf and turf, steamers, clam cakes and chowder. Seafood melody bowl is delicious. Tuna and the tequila lime chicken. They're waiting for you, for crying out loud, at the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue in West Warwick. And again, they're open 7 days a week. Stop in and see them at the Coesit Inn. I think we can squeeze in another commercial. I like that there's just little things that sometimes I see, and then I think, gee, why aren't I doing that? And then I realize, wait a minute, we could be doing that. This portion of the program is brought to you by the Propane Plus. All your heating and cooling. Look at that. There's their website. Residential, commercial, heating, cooling. You just click on it. They're 24/7. That's right. Now, they're also in Rehoboth, by the way. You can call them at 508-252-3359, and also in Rhode Island at 401-885-4209. Look for them online at propaneplus.com. They're also on Facebook, but they are fantastic. And the best, as a matter of fact, it's Propane Plus. Now, tonight, we will be diving in a little more in depth regarding the situation with the missing girl, Kylie. Now, last night, we went a little later than normal, and because we then wanted to talk to her sister, Kitty. And so now I am going to have an update at the bottom half of this hour, probably closer to 1:30. So, but listen, I'm obviously fully vested in the story. I was working on it this morning and making progress, as a matter of fact. And so we'll get to it. But there's also news. There's other news. So that's why I am going to cover it. If you want to know what is the latest, I am going to cover it at 1:30. And then tonight at 7, unless something happens in the meantime. And I promise you, if there's some kind of an update, if she is found one way or the other, it's going to be all over the Facebook page. I'll have it on YouTube. We'll have it on DePietro.com. I'll have it on X. We're not burying the lead. If she's found, we will have more coverage than anyone. Already, some of the coverage is starting to fade off. We don't. Because I've already learned some things this morning. We stay with it. But that will be, the plan is right now, fluid for tonight at 7. But right now, It is time for politics this week. And joining us is the managing editor of anchorrising.com, and it is Justin Katz. Good afternoon, Justin.
Good afternoon, John.
Justin, I want to start off. I think it's a big story, but word came down Friday that Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter to Governor McKee, and basically, and by the way, there were other areas that got it. From what I understand, the city of Boston also got it, but it basically was saying this ends now. You have sanctuary policies in place. If you don't change the way you're doing things, there's going to be consequences, repercussions. Attorney General Peter Nerona called them a bully. Governor McKee said this doesn't even warrant any type of response. I think there's a lot of different facets to this, but I want to start off and just hear some of your thoughts on this.
Well, what's notable is from all of the regions, the states, and cities that have received this notice from the federal government, our leaders are the most. I use leaders kind of hesitantly there, are the most belligerent about it. Most of them said we don't have sanctuary policies, or we're changing them, or we'll comply with the law. We get, as you said, oh, this isn't worthy of response. We're standing up to bullies. These are people who, Nerona and McKee, who are just saying what their local paymasters want them to say. And it's really a precarious situation, because at this point, Rhode Island depends so heavily on the goodwill of the federal government and the administration running the federal government that antagonizing them is not a great idea. And
Right.
the bigger thought I have, and I've said this repeatedly, out there somewhere is that event that's going to throw mud on their faces. I've been seeing all over social media a story in California where an illegal immigrant whom the California legislatures and the law and regulation had allowed him to have a commercial driver's license turned a giant 18-wheeler at an illegal U-turn on a highway. 3 people are dead because of it. Something like that is going to happen eventually. And these comments could very well come back to bite McKee and Nerona in the rear. So I hope they change their tune. I suspect when the federal government turns up the dials on actual restrictions for Rhode Island, we'll see our spineless local politicians cave pretty quickly. But until then, they're going to behave like small children.
You know what, Justin, also, and I think it's worth pointing out, and I'm not saying this is akin to or just exclusive to Rhode Island, but sometimes people just get used to the fact, and no one, like, of the way things are done, and no one even says anything, and everyone starts to just accept, like, that's just the normal course of business. And what I mean by that is I think some of the blame and some of it should be on local media, that they continue to accept Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee, who just says, oh, we're not a sanctuary state, but no one questions. He may say that. He's obviously not truthful. The Justice Department, the Trump administration, they disagree with that. But the question should be, yeah, but you're implementing sanctuary state policies, for instance. And I'm not trying to single out Channel 12, but they broke the story. Nowhere in that story do they mention that McKee gave them driving privileges. Other states that don't have driving privileges, in Rhode Island, they do. A big part of this also that I just don't see anyone mention. They'll mention in 2014, Chafee put this in motion through executive order. What they fail to mention, and this is anywhere that McKee goes, it could be reversed in 2 seconds through executive order. And finally, and I'm going to give you a chance, but if there's anyone that thinks that the proper way of policing is what we saw in Portsmouth, which is the police stand at the steps and it's like a game of muckle, like ready, 1, 2, 3, okay, you're free. And then the illegal, just a child predator illegal, runs out, and then the ICE agents at the curb have to come forward and get him. Like, it's so insane to me that our local media thinks, yeah, that's just the way it's done. That's crazy. They don't do it that way. They don't do it that way in other states. That's a proper way of doing policing, where it becomes like a game of tag, where then let's see if he can outrun them or if they're there or not. So again, but I believe that some of this goes on local media, that they don't really flesh it out, and they allow someone like McKee to hide under this guise of him just simply saying, oh, I don't run a sanctuary state.
Oh, absolutely. The media is to blame for a large part of this. I mean, they set the tone. As soon as these things are put in place, they're just forgotten. But so often they won't even pick up the story when it should be obvious. I know when say the driver's licenses for illegal immigrants were in the legislature, Representative Patricia Morgan kept coming
Yes.
forward and saying, "Look, it's exactly the same as a regular driver's
Yep.
license. There's no difference. It's marked. It's the law says it can't look any different." Couldn't that be a problem? The news media, they're on the side of the Democrats. They support the progressive policies, so they don't dig into it. They don't say, "Oh, how is that?" I know at Anchor Rising we spend a lot of time just trying to get information about, this or that government policy where you can check a box if your immigration status, and we're just trying to find out, oh, how many people are getting food stamps with illegal immigration status, that kind of thing. It's impossible. And the news media doesn't dig into it because they don't want
No.
to spend the time, but because they don't want to learn anything they would have to report and contradict the progressive push of the state. And that really contributes to this. And it's what makes McKee and Nerona feel free to go out there and just act like they're leading a sovereign nation or something. And we don't have to deal with they're just bullies in the Trump administration. It's irresponsible talk, but it's enabled by the fact that they know the local media will just carry them right along as much as they can.
And they do. And I'll admit, I don't even bother to watch, lively experiment or anything like that. I mean, I felt it firsthand. It was the end of summer 2020, the pandemic summer, and Gina Raimondo, then the governor, was having those daily press briefings that I used to attend at the vets. And one time afterwards, a couple of us stick around, and she was making small talk. And she even said to me, does it ever make you uncomfortable? You're the only member of the press corps here. And we used to get sometimes 12, 15 members. Does it bother you in any way that you're the only member of the press corps that basically openly admits you're going to vote for President Trump? And it was just an odd way. She was almost trying to say, like, do you realize you're an island? You're the only one that thinks that way. But Justin, for me, it made me realize that one of the reasons why our local media, what's left of it, why they don't push and press, is because they're actually on the side of, they were all Biden voters, they were Harris voters, and they, frankly, they believe in open borders, as a matter of fact. Now, I do want to go ahead. I want to give you a chance.
It's even more kind of corrupt than that. I mean, Raimondo was a great kind of pivot point on this. I've got similar stories related to work with the center and her, but she would hire media people for six-figure salaries, which is now kind of the norm. That's a big part of their career path. So not only was she kind of bullying the media into going along with her, she was making government office a big part of their career path. And it goes on and on and on. There are so many reasons they just will not cover. And, it was a big deal that Ted Nesi got the first COVID interview with Gina Raimondo. And that kind of thing is so important to them. It's probably even more important than just their progressive ideology. They're just part of the team professionally. And that's a big problem.
A lot of it has been talked about that Nicholas Alaverdi, who faked his death, was in Scotland, this whole ridiculous thing. They drag him back to Utah. And then he was, in fact, convicted of rape. But what I noticed, Justin, has been absent. Dan McGowan, to his credit, kind of hinted at it in a column he did. But I remember at the time, and people, this doesn't get covered anymore, but Bob Kerr of the Providence Journal would always include this guy in his column. And he gave him kind of a stature, and he used to write about him. And then we learned he was even like hanging out with him. This guy, Nick Alaverdi, he completely fabricated that when he was in the Rhode Island foster home care, that he had been sexually abused. He sued the state, and Kerr's writing about it, and he got a huge payout. He got hundreds of thousands of dollars. He made up the whole thing. My whole point in mentioning this, I fully recognize that Bob Kerr is retired. I get it that the Journal is not what it once was, but it should be noted that someone like Bob Kerr gave this guy cover because he basically said, hey, I believe him, so we all should believe him.
Oh, well, certainly. And I think, this Oliverdian story is certainly worthy of a movie. It's a kind of an interesting study in how you can scam an entire kind of political community, and that's basically what he did. And I think you can, sure, he's retired and so on, but somebody like Bob Kerr, don't you have some responsibility to dig into it, look into facts,
Yeah.
have some skepticism? So much of progressives in particular in the state, they're so, things that sound true are true because they want them to be. You almost don't even have to dig into it. But that's how these people build up these scams. They get into the kind of the political environment in Rhode Island. I believe Alvardian was a page in the General Assembly.
Yes.
They befriend somebody in the media who gives them credibility, and everybody who believes the story makes it that much harder for the next person to check what to verify. They just accept it because everybody else does, and that's how you end up with a kind of a sociopathic character like that.
Yes. And then, and again, Dan McGowan even mentions that he used to claim he went to Harvard. Now, of course, that was like totally fabricated. I met that guy once, and within 10 minutes, there was just something about him that was off. And I never believed. And then I didn't make a big deal of it, but I was like, there's no way that guy attends Harvard. It's a scam. But he would stand there. And Kerr, by the way, this wasn't one column in the Providence Journal. He wrote like several columns, kept talking about it. And, this is a kid, came up through the system, sexually abused, lie, blah, 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 lie, now going to Harvard, lie. You would think the Providence Journal would, I think, write something saying, hey, we got this wrong, and we got it wrong big time. Justin, if you would also be so kind, Rhode Island Freedom to Read Law, McKee and all the progressives made a huge deal about this. If you could just take a minute to explain to people what that's all about.
Yeah, what was funny was I looked into it because Kathy Gregg from the Providence Journal kind of taunted people who opposed this law to actually read it, and so I did. And basically, I mean, this is in response to, if you go back to and look at the history, the parents were starting to go to school committee meetings around the country, finding these inappropriate books in school libraries and local libraries. They were looking for somebody in government to hold accountable for that. It became such a deal that the Biden White House started treating them like they were some kind of insurrectionist terrorists by going to meetings.
Yes.
And by the way, they would read from the books at the meetings and they would be stopped because the content was not appropriate for a public meeting, and yet it was appropriate for elementary school children. Nicole Solis also filed a police report in North Kingstown High School because some of these books were there. Notably, also where we were having naked fat tests, kind of an interesting correspondence there. But basically, what this law does, it purports to protect librarians from being sued and censorship. It creates this process for people to apply to change books if they're objecting to them. The process is a farce. There's nobody from the public on the committees that make the decisions. Taxpayers are, and this is very interesting. The law actually says that taxpayers do not have a vested interest in their schools or the libraries connected with the schools, so they can't complain about it, which seems strange to me. I mean, I still pay the bill, I guess, for the schools in my town. I don't know why I don't have a vested interest. But then, worst of all, they actually expanded the definition of pornography or inappropriate material for children, so that it's even more stuff can slip through. They wanted to make sure that these objectionable materials were not going to get caught up in indecency laws. So now it can't just be obviously patently offensive. It has to be patently offensive as a whole. So they kind of cracked open the window to allow more inappropriate material in, and then they go parade around like they're protecting free speech. What I'd like to see, if that's the case, is how about a process where I can apply to make sure that, say, Rush Limbaugh's children's books are in my local school? Can I go apply and ask a committee to consider them? There's no other policy going that way, but it's a complete farce. But it makes them able to behave as if they're for free speech when really they're just for corrupting children.
Justin, it's also to me another reminder that there is, I don't care what anyone says, but the unions have made it very clear to our local media, and by that I mean the TV stations, the newspapers, that Nicole Solis, there's basically a ban on covering her. And because in the past, I would think if you had a group of moms that got together and they were trying to, push certain books that should be taught, it would get coverage. but I don't see, you and I have talked about it, but I see no other realistic, viable explanation of why she gets no coverage other than Senate President Val Lawson, Crowley, Walsh still hanging around. They have made it very clear to our local media, you are not to give Nicole Solas any media attention.
Well, I think that's probably the case in her particular case. But we discussed it a little bit already. I think somewhere in the Trump era and COVID, local media just decided we don't need to pay attention to the wrong kind of people. They just decided that was now. We used to talk about whether there was bias, and they'd have me on, they'd have you on to talk about on this show, to talk about things, provide another perspective. They just stopped doing that. They don't care. They don't want to cover opposition. They don't want to cover anything anybody else says. You would think Nicole Solas kicked this off with an actual tangible police report about one of these books. You would think that would be a big part of the story for the Freedom to Read Act. It's not, because they don't want to acknowledge that there's actual controversy. They just want to roll out what I called them earlier, their paymasters, and in this case it's often the teachers unions want them to say, and that's sadly what they do.
Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin Katz, managing editor of anchorrising.com, has found. And Justin, what do you have for us today?
Well, this one's kind of curious. If you're on social media at all, you might catch there was the Supreme Court has announced that they're going to consider whether to consider a lawsuit related to same-sex marriage in the United States, and their decision in 2015 to change the definition of marriage. And the Democrats are hopping all over this because it's like they're salivating, thinking if we can get the Republicans on the side of opposing same-sex marriage, it'll help us in the election. And so the East Greenwich Democrats tried to get Ashley Kalus, who seems like she may be considering running as a Republican for governor again. And she jumped right in to say, no, I'm going to fight for LGBTQ plus whatever's. And that's, I think, I dug into this a little bit on Anchor Rising, and I'll continue to do so because I think this is an important point. You see this from Ken Block and others. You just have to dump the conservatives. You've got to placate the progressives. That's not the strategy. I wish these folks would learn. Just ignore it. They're trying to create a controversy. You don't have to jump in. You don't have to just jump on the backs of your potential supporters because for that. And I think that's going to be very important for people to watch, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on those kind of behaviors among Republicans on Anchor Rising.
Just again, give a plug. How can people read a lot of the stuff that's written and you refer to on Anchor Rising?
Oh, well, it's anchorrising.com. It's updated multiple times a day. There is a newsletter you can sign up for, and at the end of the day, you'll get an email to tell you what we've posted. And also follow us on social media, Anchor Rising, Facebook, Twitter, X, or even LinkedIn. We're all over the place and free on the internet.
All right, folks, again, it's Justin Katz, managing editor at anchorrising.com. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. Have a great week.
All right, folks, there it is. Justin Katz right here on the Pico Show. All right. Now, I know people want to know what is the latest. We're going to get to the latest. Notice how we're running on schedule. Look at this. I said we were going to touch on it. We are obviously going to touch on it. And then 7 o'clock tonight. Now, I always post, and I will be posting, in fact, that you can watch it. We're going to be talking about Kylie, but I'm going to talk about it right now. But however, this portion of the program, folks, is brought to you by ServPro of Providence. Now, remember, when disaster strikes, contact ServPro of Providence today, 401-941-5500. Fire damage, smoke damage, water damage, ServPro Providence. They're fast, they're thorough, professional, or if you have mold, ServPro Providence, 401-941-5500. From water damage, fire, mold, storm recovery, ServPro Providence. They're available 24/7. Call them 401-941-5500 for ServPro of Providence. Well, folks, again, good afternoon. Now, I recognize people want something very dramatic announced about the missing girl, and she is a missing girl, about Kylie. I get that. And we spoke to her sister last night. Um, I, I listen. I'm speaking and communicating. I should say, I'm communicating with the family basically every single day. And so, just for some people to understand, it was is very intense last week. The fact it was announced that she was then missing. Now, I have covered some of these missing person stories. Keep in mind, I have I have faith in the Massachusetts State Police and the Rehoboth Police, and the two are working in conjunction. I know people want some dramatic update, but right now it's quiet. It doesn't mean they're not working on it. And what they did last week, people don't realize, but that was a loud statement. They were searching that reservoir. They were searching the woods around there. They were, we saw them checking dumpsters. They were looking some other areas. They had helicopters up in the sky that has the infra camera that could actually detect if maybe there's someone down there. So you have to understand, just because they're not saying a lot, it does not mean that it's not an active investigation, because I believe, if anything, it's the opposite. It's a very active investigation. But what I've learned from doing these is they have their, and I know some people, I think a lot of you will understand this, but there's a rhyme and reason to it, and they're checking boxes, and they're checking, did you do this? Did you check here? Did you, check there? There's a system that they are following. This isn't the first search that they have done, right? Missing person. It's not the first search that they have done. So the first thing that you want to do, and I've learned this from covering when they're looking for someone, trying to locate someone, trying to find someone. The first thing you do is you have to be able to check off, so to speak. And I don't mean that they're not doing it aggressively, but there's a method when you're going to present, and then they're going to reconvene. Okay, let's go over everything. We checked here, we checked there. It's a lot of private property. It's very woodsy. This is not an inner city setting. This is a very rural setting. It's not an urban setting. So they could be in possession of things, and they're just not releasing that information. I'd be willing to bet that the investigation has been going on a little over a week, and they know more now, certainly, than they did a week ago. It doesn't mean they know where she is. But at what point, what's the point of continuing to search the woods and search the reservoir if you don't have it? They're also checking all kinds of logistics. She did have a cell phone. There is video. I can't believe we still get these people. She was dropped off there by Uber. Did they talk to the Uber driver? That's probably one of the first people they spoke to. That first weekend, they spoke to all different shelters, hospitals. Now, today is what? Is it possible she suddenly is going to appear and she's alive and was off somewhere and didn't even know that people were looking for her? So far, that has not happened on this Monday, and it didn't happen over the course of the weekend. So I would say right now she's missing. And this is a missing persons case. Right now, we are not aware of any evidence of foul play. I want to repeat, there's been um, no list of, there's been no mention of suspects. There's been no mention of a person of interest. And so it just remains a missing persons case. So I think her family, her sisters in the police, I think the first week they did a good job by basically putting it out there that you have a missing person. And I assure you that hospitals are aware of this, that any shelter is aware of it. So, level one, it's out there. If someone came across her, if she was staying somewhere somehow or with a friend, it's not like a secret. I see, and I know that some people just post, I didn't even know about this. Well, we also don't know what their news habits are. There's some people that pay no attention to the news. There were some people. That doesn't mean it's not out there, right? I mean, Zelensky's going to meet at the White House today. I assure you, there are plenty of people that have no idea about that. That doesn't mean there isn't coverage of it. It just means with their own habit of following the news, they are unaware of it. But I would say week one, Faith and Kitty, I think they've done a very good job in getting the word out. And I think Sean reached out to me initially. And when word really started to come out that they had this missing person that they were trying to locate. But I think Kitty last night, I found that very helpful and interesting. The people need to slow down. The police, they need time to go through some of the data. They need to go through what they have right now. But I'll tell you what you don't do. It's kind of picture, and this isn't going to be a great analogy, but I'm going to give it to you in just a moment. But folks, this portion of the program, remember, Kids Club on the Pike. Now maybe, listen, there's still time for summer. So Kids Club on the Pike, maybe you want to enroll them for their summer camp. Or maybe, just maybe you want to find out. Oh, good. Okay, good. Great. Oh, good. Okay, well, okay, good. That's completely unrelated. I'm working on another story. I'm going to give an analogy in just a moment. I am. Oh, wait a minute. I think I have I think we have an image for Kids Club. I'm pretty sure. Folks, again, I know some people are conditioned that they like where they get a quick minute 20. We don't do it that way. We walk it through. I'm not just giving like a score. Some people treat the news as if they're watching sports, which is 90 seconds. I just want to know who won the game. I just want to know, did they find her? No, there's been no announcement. You're free to leave. But we don't do it that way. We talk about it a little bit more. We talk about it a lot more, actually. That's the method, and that's the forum we use. If that's not your preferred, that's totally fine. I'm in no way offended. I'm not. But we don't. I just need to know in 60 seconds. We don't. This is a little more in depth. I'm trying to be polite. It could be above your pay grade IQ wise. We go a little more in depth. Folks, Kids Club on the Pike, birthday parties, before and after school program. And of course, they're wrapping up their summer camp. Now, they're easy to get to. That's one of the reasons why people love it. It's Plainfield Pike on the Cranston-Johnston line. Again, you can call Kristen, 401-443-5336. If you're looking for options for before and after school care or preschool, Kids Club on the Pike is a great option. They have locations all over. 401-443-5336. So I plan to, we will have some law enforcement experts that we'll have on from time to time. And we may, which one is that? Oh, okay. This is the missing. That's all. That's all that was put out by police, which is she's missing. But as a police officer who gets involved with this type of stuff explained to me one time, that is that you want to yeah, that's right. Can we just skip to the end of the true crime episode? This is real life. You know what real life is? Did you watch when we had Kitty the sister on last night? You know what jumped out at me? When she said, if we ever find her. If we ever find her. That's real life. That is absolutely real life. That's what we're dealing with. And some people aren't equipped for that. Much like the comments of, did they find her yet? Did they find her yet? As if she wandered out of the yard. As a police officer said to me, you know, picture someone that loses their keys in their house, but they do it methodically. You thoroughly go through a drawer. It's not there. You put a yellow sticky, but you have to really search it. You go on to the next drawer and the next drawer. And pretty soon you have all these, you know, yellow sticky notes that are showing this was searched and it's not there. So there's a rhyme and reason. Everything they're doing, the police, as I've said, they're sending very strong messages. They were searching the dumpster at Dunkin' Donuts. What do you think that tells you? It doesn't. That doesn't. Why are they checking there? Just to make sure. And she's not living there. Do I really have to explain this? Apparently, I do. They want to check that to make sure someone didn't place her in the dumpster. Someone over the weekend or yesterday, whatever. Why are they checking the water? Not to see if she went for a swim. What kind of rock have some of these people been living under? They're checking the water to make sure to see if they're going to find a body, for crying out loud. Why are they checking? I don't know how some of these people make it through the day-to-day. I like that. It does take time. They've put the word out. I want to give credit to Rehoboth Police, Massachusetts State Police, and the family. That's not easy. They have raised a good job. This is not a runaway teen. This is not someone that ran away and doesn't, wants to live with another parent. That's happened sometimes. So this is someone who basically has vanished. But as we know, people don't vanish. So you can start with, or they can look at, they know where she's not. And that's just as important to be able to check off. They have built a database of where they have searched. And then they can say that that person is not there. Now, this is not easy. And I'll tell you what's very difficult for the family. And this almost doesn't match up with the way some people treat a story like this. I'm seeing people put comments on my pages. Please, God, deliver her home. I feel like saying, oh, now it's God's fault. Oh, now it's up to God and Jesus to why? Oh, they throw that in their lap. Please, Jesus, you have her. Return her. What? No, it doesn't work that way. What are you talking about? Is that what people are praying on? Do I pray? Yeah, I pray. I'm praying for faith, that she can have the strength to weather this. I'm praying for Kitty. I'm praying for the first responders. I'm praying for the police and the people that are trying to keep their wits about them. That's who I'm praying for. I'm not saying, listen, as if, Jesus, listen, I know you have her. This is a hostage situation. I never understood, that's how people are praying. Listen, you have her. Listen, God, give her back. As if it's his fault. No, that's not it. Charlotte Lester, those 2.5 years. They didn't get a good outcome, but they got an outcome. Michelle Romano, a little bit less. We got on that last fall. The rest of the media did nothing with that story, by the way. She went missing in July. The family didn't report it till August. We picked up the story with the family in October. Her remains were found in March. That was an ending, but it wasn't the ending they wanted. And by the way, still no arrest in that case. Still no arrest in that case with the Michelle Romano case. So my point is, I'm not speaking out of school, but I try to tell the family that I know people want an immediate answer. I mean, I'm getting messages from people like, enough already. Where is she? Listen, it's not a game of hide and go seek going wrong. They don't know where she is. She was alive. They saw her on the 6th. She supposedly was there on the 7th. He says he last saw her leaving his property on the 7th, but her family has not seen her since August 6th. So it's going to be 2 weeks this Wednesday. Could someone survive out in the woods? I mean, I guess they could. Like I said, with Linda, that was a happy ending. People are asking, and I get these messages also, but seriously, just between us, what do you really think? My honest answer is I don't know. I don't know what happened. She could show up. She could show up. I'm not writing her off. She could. She could have. There's several options out there. My honest answer, which I think, to be honest with you, I'm not encouraging anyone to go grab a bunk at Crossroads. I'll tell you that much. I'm not saying that. But to be honest with you, no, I don't. No, to be tell me honestly, what do you think happened? I mean, I am being. I don't know. First of all, I don't know her. I don't know the boyfriend. This is it's a sad situation. I don't like hearing, I mean, like everybody else, we had a young 18-year-old girl who, for various reasons, did not have a place to hang her head, so to speak. But my honest answer is no, I don't know. I agree with everyone else. Of course no, of course it doesn't. I understand, and one of the sisters said every hour counts. We saw that with Linda. We saw that with Linda. Linda, they're very fortunate that she was found alive. So I don't know, but I believe Massachusetts State Police, they let them do their thing. All these people, we should be allowed to search. Listen, the police know what they're doing. I know it's not easy. I'll tell you what I tell the family. You need to eat. You need to sleep. You're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. You have to find a way. This is not a pull an all-nighter like you're studying for a final in college. You need to eat. You need to sleep. You need to get a hold of yourself. I didn't say it's easy, but this is not. This is where some of the people that are following this, they think it's like a Netflix special of like, enough already. What happened? Like as if I'm holding it back. All right, I finally. Will you please tell us what happened? Did they find? This is happening in real time. In real time. Now with Linda, we did find her. That was a long 4 days. It was. And then late Sunday, I was with the family at the hospital. They were so fantastic, and they were very, thank you so much. The family was watching my coverage that Thursday night, and they lived out of state. I mean, so there can be a happy ending. I was with them at the hospital. I mean, they were just so overjoyed, and she was getting treatment and the whole thing. Folks, just a reminder, J. Perry Paving. Oh, let me put it on the screen. Remember, if you're a veteran, no one has a better package for you than J. Perry Paving. Remember, free estimate, any project. Call them 401-732-1730. Now, if you're a veteran, or maybe your mom is, or your dad, or your grandfather, or your son, or your girlfriend, J. Perry Paving, they have a great package for veterans. Call them 401-732-1730. You know what's better than one veteran getting their driveway paved? 2 or 3 on the same street. Call them, free estimate. It improves the value of your property. J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. The police told us a lot. The police, what do I believe? What am I saying? I don't believe the police are corrupt. No, I don't. But you have to look at the Anna Walsh case. I mean, Brian Walsh in Cohasset, she was missing. The husband, Brian Walsh, said, "Oh, she took a Uber or a Lyft to Logan. She's in D.C. She's not here." Well, they determined that was not true. There's no video of her at Logan. There was no ride service that took her there. And then now he stands accused, and I believe late October is his trial, that he made a different plan and took life. She was missing. There's always, I've noticed, folks, there's a difference between, sometimes, as I've said, there's a runaway teen, and people send me a note. Will you post this? She's missing. And then I get the circumstances. And then we find out that this is sometimes a teen that just doesn't want to live at home. And then I try to explain, well, she's not really missing. She just doesn't want to live for whatever reason. Sometimes it's the mother's new boyfriend. Maybe it's they moved her out of one place somewhere else. That's not a missing person. And the police, they have the experience. They know when someone is missing like this, like Anna Walsh or Charlotte Lester, or in this case, Kylie, that, and then someone that somehow just wants to disappear sometimes. So police, you have to understand, they're on this. Again, we're going to cover it to continue to give it attention. And also, I like some of these people. No, seriously, tell me, what's going on? I'm not withholding anything. I would tell you if I knew something. She has not been found. They don't know where she is. The family doesn't know where she is. And the police don't know where she is. So, and I assure you again, if they did, or if I did, we'd announce it right away. So, to be honest with you, I think it's a very sad situation that has happened here, and we don't have an answer. There's no time to jump to conclusions. There's a lot of nonsense, and I get it, noise that goes along with something like this. People, start saying, just arrest someone. You can't do that. Just go and, it doesn't work that way. I have full confidence. Rehoboth Police, Massachusetts State Police, they're on it. And if you pay attention, follow where the police are. I've learned that. Follow where they are. Because, and I'm going to tell you again, and I know that some people may not be familiar with these cases, but a lot of people are. And again, after going through some of these, you learn by doing it. So sometimes police are aggressive more than others, and sometimes they're not as aggressive as we'd like them to be. All of that is true. All of that is true. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Arch Design Builders. Now remember, they're fantastic. Call them if you think of redoing your kitchen or maybe a bathroom, or Arch Design Builders. They specialize in residential design. Make your house the showplace you want it to be. 401-207-4124. And I invite you, whether it's a kitchen or a bathroom or a basement or a deck or a special project, Arch Design Builders. You're gonna enjoy meeting with Ed and Roxanne. It's a family-run business, and they're spectacular. 5-star, we're talking about high-end, custom build, and the best customer service. But it all starts when you first call Ed and Roxanne at Arch Design Builders, 401-218-9707. Well, folks, again, good afternoon. I wish I had better news. I wish I could say, hey, great news. That's not what this is. And what I mean is, for instance, with Charlotte Lester, I learned a lot from that, from covering that case. I also want to be very clear. I don't, and I hope people understand that I don't come off like I'm not an expert. I've learned by covering a lot of these cases. I didn't go into that like an expert. I had people when the Charlotte Lester case first happened that were throwing out all these different type of scenarios. But then I met with a retired high-ranking member of law enforcement and said, just follow the police. Just follow the police. And with her, it kept coming back to they were at the house. They were at the house. So people may not remember now, but people had all these theories of it's this one, it's that one, maybe this happened. But then it always came back to where the police were. Michelle Romano was a tougher story because the amount of time that had passed, people need to be in touch with people. I'll say there's several things that stand out to me. One of the things about this case with Kylie, who is missing, and again, we're gonna do it tonight, 7:00, unless something happens between now and then, but that's our plan that we'll do. And then sometimes it's an hour. Last night it turned into much longer than that, but because we're waiting for Kitty, but some things stand out to me. And one of the things is that this is someone that always had their phone with them. And this was someone, meaning Kylie. She always had her phone with her and she was constantly texting people. So I admit it is unusual that suddenly they have not heard from her, because even if she was with someone, walking along, met someone, hey, need a ride, need a place to stay, I'm going, whatever, camping somewhere, I don't know, whatever scenario where someone just says, yeah, I'd love to go out on your boat, or I'd love to go camping in New Hampshire or Maine, whatever. But even then, you could text. So I don't know what happened, but the fact that the cell phone suddenly goes quiet, that to me is definitely something that's odd. That stands out. And again, I like the fact that you want to keep people thinking positive. Of course we do. But, and I want to, thank you, Debbie. And I want to remind people again, we have a lot of information that other people don't have on our website, depetro.com. The information is there. Now, there are some people that almost have an attitude of like, just wake me when they find her. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. And not everyone has to follow the story. There's many of us that have, kind of become vested in this story now. And people want to see, where's this going to go? But I caution you that this is real life. We don't know where this is going to go. Right now, on this Monday, they don't know where she is. So they've searched. They've looked around that area. It doesn't mean that there won't be more searches. But if people want a quick ending, or just tell me, did they find her yet? It's not like that. It's not the kid riding in the car. Are we there yet? It's open-ended. It's open-ended. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2:00 news. Everyone else, we'll be back 7:00 tonight with our theme, Where is Kylie? Where is she? Enjoy this Monday.